Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, listener. I think we have trashed this issue head to tail. Let me just add a little. Uh, During Buhari, I think we had zero budgeting system that he used then, and
This one is envelope.
budgeting system. And Kunle opened up with the issue of agencies, ministries, MDA saying that budget is inadequate. Like the Englishman would say, and my father will always repeat it to us, that a lazy workman quarrels with instrument. The biggest instrument MDAs have is the finance, and they always say that it's not enough. And I said last week here on this program, I said, why do we always put all the blames on inadequate funding? I said, when you go to health, inadequate funding. When you go to education, inadequate funding. When you go to Umahi's ministry, inadequate funding. When you go to even where they make money, where they collect revenue, they'll tell you inadequate funding is why they didn't collect money. When you go to power, the minister has budgeted 8 billion naira to sensitize Nigerians on how to pay higher electricity tariff. Inadequate funding. It's called inadequate funding.
And the Ministry of Information is complaining that they don't have money.
Thank you. Inadequate funding. Meanwhile, NTA makes money, Radio Nigeria makes money.
They are public service.
Yes.
They are public service.
Yes. Now, they make revenue, they collect advert. They should leave the advert for private sector if they don't collect advert. So they should leave it for us, the private sector. So they collect money. They collect revenue from advertisement. They collect documentaries. So they have money in the Ministry of Information. Let's not divert this discussion. So
8 billion should go to Minister of Information that has the structure and the machinery to educate Nigerians. They want to chop that money in Minister of Power. That's why NLC is threatening strike. And that's where citizens will come in. That's the essence. You have to scrutinize the appropriation bills, they estimate. Anyone you find untoward, you raise issues, you threaten, use all powers legitimate to you to stop public funds from being frittered away.
So that is the issue. So maybe priorities are not placed right. Maybe he has a good intention to sensitize Teve's village and Amechi's hideout on how to not to divert power. You know, this diversion that people do, and also not to default in paying your taxes. So he needs that 8 billion. And Amechi has rightly said, I think the Ministry of Information and National Orientation should be having that money so that they can sensitize Nigerians more on the good, the bad, and the ugly aspect of power sector. Let's not deviate too much on the issue of budget. Now, I have watched and I try to ask myself, how many times a year or a period that the National Assembly have to oversight? How many do they have a number of times they oversight?
Once they're on recess, they will tell you the committees continue with their work.
Continue their work. So, what I'm asking is that it appears is every time we have an issue with a sector of the economy and you see the National Assembly inviting them and saying that we're coming on oversight. The issue of JAM, for example, did they oversight JAM? If they oversight JAM adequately, they would have known that a certain amount of money have been budgeted for food and budgeted for shelters or what have you. And now they've come, they attack JAM openly and they reverse and say, no, it was an error. So this kind of display of, inadequacies in our intellect is really bad. We need to know that lawmakers in the House are supposed to be learned people. They're supposed to be savvy. They're supposed to be up to date with information so that you don't come to the public glare, as Amechi has said. You see social media there, you see TV there, and you begin to raise your voice. We need to watch carefully, knowing that revenue drive is what the president is interested in. Revenue drive. As any ministry come to say, okay, fine, like Minister of Labour, for example, they say their 46 billion is too small for them to renovate all the skills acquisition center to create more job opportunity, not jobs now. Have they thought of maybe collaborating so that they can commercialize some aspect of those skills centers so they can drive also revenue for government? Government need money to fund the budget. Meanwhile, everybody is coming to say, no, my money is too small, my money is too small. So what effort are you doing to bring in more money? That is why the issue of telecom tax, telecom's tariff hike issue is coming up, because government need more money to be able to give to ministries that don't generate money to fund their budget.
The telecoms will only pay the company tax and all those taxes, but they will take the most of the money for their operations and their profits, and all of that. That may not come directly to government. Then the VAT issue also.
It can proceed from oil, and it's high time we started the divestment that Jonathan government started when Nigerian economy then was rebased.
They
And,
rebasing, Abulu, maybe before you go on, they proposed, or the
Rebase,
eminent rebasing shows that real estate
yes, that
and
is
all of that
where I'm
are
driving
now
at.
up, while oil is taking a backseat. And you know, there will be a huge problem for Nigeria this year.
And I have a
This
problem
morning,
with that. Yeah, sorry.
in the last 2 days, the oil prices are dropping. The global oil prices today,
They have dipped.
it has dropped by 0.2%. It's now selling, the Brent crude is now selling at, you know, $78, you know, and all of that. And what is our benchmark? $75
dollar.
which means that by the time Trump starts, this based on
Refining.
what Trump said, by the time he starts putting those things into
drilling,
action,
yeah.
it means we're going to go below 70%, $70 before the end of the year.
It's a huge problem.
Which means we have to borrow more.
It's a huge.
And if you don't tax, where will you get the money?
Yeah, it's a huge problem. The real estate that you are referring to, the way they're going about the real estate, I think we need to also be careful. They'll tell you, people will just go to platform and say 1 bedroom flat is so amount more, and it sticks there. And they'll tell you because of building materials, a house you have built how many years ago, you are saying because of building material, you say because of maintenance, that is why you are increasing the rent to 5 million or to 6 million. I think we also need checks and balances in the regulator in that industry. They don't have a regulator, they only have an association. I think the Ministry of Housing needs to sit up properly to regulate the real estate sector. They depend on, I think they get their finances from
that's what
Federal Mortgage Bank.
That's why Kule said those that said there's government has no business in business are living in illusion. It's the business of government. Government itself is business.
That's why Trump is sitting that way.
That's why government will have to support real estate mass housing. If it is in the absence of mass housing that citizens are left to private investors to chew and div as it were. So government should not run away from its responsibility. That's why you're the government. That's why you're the regulator. If you see this is happening, you intervene. Those interventions are not coming. And why are the private investors increasing prices? That's their own business. So when some people are building hotels, some others are building private apartments. So when government fees is high, there are mechanisms, several it can use to influence the market and bring down prices.
We need a regulation, just a minute, we need a regulation in that sector. You know, when Fashola was in Lagos, he said you should not pay rent more than 6 months. Monthly rent and 6 months. So we need the regulation in that sector. Even though
you are taking us to socialism,
yeah.
we may not need to get there. We will not need to get there, but clearly the issue of mass housing is something the state